dreams come true. There's no limit to what we can do. Turning no's to yes, leaving doubt behind, releasing the stress. We were born to shine.
You're now tuned in to the Sade Champagne Show. With the cast, Christina Renee, Rick and Melissa Wood, Lisa Leewald, Veronica Escobar Winners, Ariana Carde, and Ayakule Falama. Celebrity guest interviews, segments on health, wellness, creativity, entrepreneurship, spirituality, hot topics, and more. You're now tuned in to the Sade Champagne Show.
Good evening, everyone. That was Dior with Warrior. That is her brand new single. Make sure you go and get it on iTunes or Amazon. And she's one of my dearest friends. And we'll be getting her back on my show either the end of this season or next season. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 33 of the Sade Champagne Show on GrindHard Radio. We only have 2 more weeks until our Season 2 finale. Every episode is available on iTunes. Search the Sade Champagne Show, and you can download them for free. Also, my Sade Champagne YouTube channel is another place where you can listen to the show afterwards. Thanks to everyone for tuning in all around the globe. All episodes of my show are available at blogtalkradio.com/grindhard_radio. I've also posted the direct link to this episode on my Twitter and Facebook pages, so you can tune in at any time. Thank you to Travis Miller for creating and producing my show's theme song, and to Scott Swish for mixing the song. If this is your first time listening, I'm a professional musical artist, performer, inspirational speaker, and entrepreneur. I have created, directed, and executive produced over 200 charitable and inspirational events, including my popular Power of a Dream tour. I love mentoring, coaching, authentically being myself, and using my platform to encourage, empower, and bring out the gold in others. Tonight, our special guests include one of my biggest inspirations, FRANCOIS Du Toit. He's a theologian, speaker, and author of the Mirror Translation Bible. We also have musical artist and entrepreneur, Tutalin, and 2-time cancer survivor and founder of the United Cancer Advocacy Action Network, Rachel SHUR. Francois' work is being translated into several African languages, as well as Chinese, Russian, Hungarian, German, French, Spanish, Polish, Portuguese, Japanese, Dutch, and Slovakian. They reach thousands of people daily on Facebook, YouTube, and bulk email. Tutalin has been licensed into ABC Television, Quicksilver, Akami, and Billabong. Rachel's organization, UCAN, has helped inspire, motivate, and educate over 6,000 cancer patients across the country through a variety of programs through the award-winning 501c3 cancer nonprofit grassroots 100% volunteer-run organization. My Power of a Dream tour is always booking new shows and performances. This fall, we will be in San Luis Obispo, Ventura County, Oxnard, Orange County, Fresno County, maybe even Sacramento, and more. We love traveling, and if you're looking to bring Power of a Dream tour or any of our award-winning, critically acclaimed artists or speakers to your city or event anywhere in the world, anywhere, we'll go anywhere, please email me at SadeChampagneMusic@gmail.com. Once again, that's SadeChampagneMusic@gmail.com for more details. Check out my Facebook page, Sade Champagne, to see our full schedule. Just look under events. Lastly, thank you to everyone who's been watching, sharing, and subscribing to all my new videos. I'm constantly writing new pieces and creating new songs, and I'm going into the recording studio soon enough. To find out more about my musical journey and how you can be involved, check out GoFundMe.com/Sade Champagne Music. Once again, that's GoFundMe.com/Sade Champagne Music. I'll be live tweeting and posting on Facebook all show long, and I want to know your thoughts. Tweet me at Sade Champagne, Facebook, Sade Champagne, Instagram, I am Sade Champagne, hashtag Sade Champagne Show or GHR to join in the conversation. Shout out to everyone who's already been tweeting me, Facebooking me, Instagramming, YouTubing, emailing me. You guys reach out every single week, every single day, and I am forever grateful for your support.
All right, our first special guest is on the line, and I want to jump right into his interview. He is one of my biggest inspirations, and he has made a huge impact on my life through his messages, literature, and social media. FRANCOIS du Toit grew up in a home where Jesus was lived and loved. His parents were in full-time ministry, and his eldest brother, Leon, is a missionary in the Ukraine and Russia for many, many years. Francois met his wife, Lydia, in 1974 while he was working with Youth for Christ. The following year, he studied Greek and Hebrew at the University of Pretoria for 3 years while Lydia completed her nursing training. In 1978, Francois also spent a year with Youth with a Mission. He and Lydia married in January 1979 and are blessed with 4 amazing children. They worked in full-time ministry for 14 years, during which time they also pastored a church and led a training facility for more than 700 students over a 5-year period. They then left the ministry and for 10 years did business mainly in the tourism industry. They built and managed a safari lodge in the Sabi Sand Game Reserve and eventually relocated to Hermanus, where they started Southern Right Boat-based whale watching. In December 2000, Francois started writing the book, God Believes in You, which I love that book. I suggest everyone to get it, which led to him being invited to speak at various Christian camps and churches. They are now back in full-time ministry since February 2004 and travel at least once a year abroad and almost every month into Africa and around. Francois has written several books in both English and Afrikaans, including God Believes in You, Divine Embrace, Done, and The Mystery Revealed. He is currently passionately engaged in continuing with the Mirror translation. His work is being translated into several African languages as well as Chinese, Russian, Hungarian, German, French, Spanish, Polish, Portuguese, Japanese, Dutch, and Slovakian. They reach thousands of people daily on Facebook, YouTube, and bulk email. Francois, it's so great to finally hear your voice.
Hey, Sade, this is such an amazing moment for us. Thank you so much for hosting the show. We feel so privileged, absolutely honored to be part of this and have a voice all the way from the southern tip of Africa, all the way across this planet. You know, what an amazing time we live in.
Exactly. I love it so much. I have been messaging you and Lydia for years on Facebook, and I look forward to the day when we rejoice in person. We want to thank you so much for being on Season 2 of the Sade Champagne Show on GrindHard Radio.
Fantastic. We feel absolutely blessed. You know, we're sitting here in sunny South Africa with the spring in full swing, and I think we're 9 hours ahead of you, so we can confidently predict a very nice future for you guys in America. We're just ahead of you, and everything is good on this side of the planet.
Awesome. My listeners and supporters come from all different backgrounds and beliefs, and I've been sharing with them more and more about what I believe and why I believe this way. And people are so open to it because of the way that I love them and because of the way that, you know, what they see manifested from my life. One of my passions is bringing encouragement and hope to people who have been burned out by religion and church and people who have been taught erroneous things about God. And I know you're passionate about that too.
Absolutely. You know, so it's the most comfortable, most safe environment one could ever engage in, is in an environment where you know that you are loved, and not only just loved politely, but you're liked, you are totally embraced. And the beauty of what we've discovered, you know, in the good news, what gives good news its goodness, is certainly, you know, revealed in the person of Jesus, you know, who shocked the Jews of his day, you know, when he declared, no one knows the Father. He says, guys, you've engaged for so many years with your ideas about God. But, you know, if you've seen me, I'll show you the Father. You know, the Father is nothing different from what you see in me. And this is so beautiful, you know, and it's definitely, there's an awakening. I believe it's a day of global reformation where this planet is awakening to the engineer of the universe, not just another replica of another new doctrine or a new wave or a new idea that we've manufactured. But we realize that we come from above, Thank God for our precious mothers, and fathers who conceived us and who bore us and brought us forth into this world. But I'm always so touched by that scripture in Jeremiah 1:5, where God says to Jeremiah, I knew you before I formed your mother's womb. And this to me is just one of the most amazing thoughts, that we pre-existed in the thoughts of God. We might have been a surprise to our parents, but He always knew us. He is the engineer of the universe. He knitted us together in our mother's womb. And He has such destiny and so many beautiful dreams for every single one of us on this planet.
That's so good. So when were you first introduced to God and Jesus?
Well, I appreciate that you read some of our story at the beginning of this program. I was really privileged to be brought up in a home where my parents passionately loved God. They introduced all four of us. We're four children, and they introduced us to the Jesus they knew and loved. And even though at that time, they were involved in a mission that wouldn't necessarily endorse, the gospel that we share with such confidence across this planet today. But both my parents passed away many years ago. They were in their 80s, and both of them fully embraced our message at that time. We were pastoring a church in Mpumalanga, which is close to the Mozambican border, in an area called Nelspruit, South Africa. And that's where we had our church, and we had the training program and the outreach program. And my dad was then the head elder of a very reformed church, typically the Presbyterian type of church. The Dutch Reformed is like a sister church to the Presbyterian. And wonderful people. I studied under the Dutch Reformed Church myself, but both my parents, embraced us and embraced our new church and whatever we did. So I was really so blessed, to from a very young age encounter a childlike trust and belief in a Jesus that was much nearer to us than the next contradiction or the next challenge. My parents were just so, it was like just breathing. Their prayer life wasn't anything else but just a constant prayer life of conversation and breathing. So I'm very, very blessed to have that reference, going way back.
And so what made the difference to you to choose what you believe versus all the other beliefs in the world?
Yeah, many people ask me this question, and I wrote a little introduction in my book, The Divine Embrace. Divine Embrace is a precious book, and in the introduction, I mentioned a few highlights, as I reflected on things that happened to us. That was just such a divine engaging us with God's thoughts. I remember in 1978 when I went to Youth at a Mission. The previous year, I was still in my studies. Anyway, that's another story. But I was actually asked, not to seek my future within the four walls of the DRC church at that time. And so I was kind of stuck in between, and I thought, well, where do I go now? And I connected with some friends from YWAM, and I joined them. And then my dad gave me a new Bible the beginning of that year, and it was the old RSV Bible with a wide margin. And I remember I was then following a program where I would read 2 chapters of Old Testament and 2 New Testament every day. And that way you work through the Old Testament once a year and 3 times a year through the New. And during my first day of January 1978, I've got this brand new Bible, new page, beautiful new pens, those fine line pens, and I'm reading and underlining just, for the familiar creation story. And suddenly, verse 26 of Genesis 1 just jumped out at me. And I sat there and I was overawed at the thought that we began in God, that we have our Genesis in His thought, that Elohim, Father, Son, and Spirit, Elohim is the plural Hebrew word for God. So within this plural context of Father, Son, and Spirit, the thought of us were conceived. God said, Elohim said, let us make mankind in our image and in our likeness. And, I was just so struck with the thought that God had nothing less in mind but the very exhibition of his image and likeness packaged in human form, packaged in human life, And suddenly, in that thought, I began to reflect on the cross because, for so many years we have attached tremendous sentimental value and appreciation for Jesus who died that horrible death on the cross, But why would God go to such expense? Why would God bother to redeem hostile humanity? I mean, when hostility, when there's a vibe in relationship, the relationship is almost lost. There's hardly a future for a relationship like that. And yet God engages with the very humanity. Why? Why would he bother? Was it out of pity? Or was it because God knew that he was about to not only reveal, but also redeem his image and his likeness in every single person on this planet? Because every one of us are uniquely precious to our Maker. We are irreplaceable. And so that was a very real awakening. And for the first time, I began to study Scripture in the light of God redeeming his evaluation of our lives, his worth through the cross. And along that year, a few things happened, that just endorsed again and again this swing in my thoughts, And I remember at one stage during 1978, was the World Cup, the soccer in Argentina, and they won it that year. I don't know if the soccer fans remember. They wouldn't if they're not my age. But anyway, Argentina played off against Holland in the finals, and it was an extra time finish. It was very exciting. But we were on a Youth of the mission outreach in Argentina. And I was so passionate and so excited about, just loving people and going out to the streets, beyond the buildings, just touching people where they're at, that I thought, maybe I should break my relationship with my wife and just be like Paul and with Lydia. I haven't married her yet. We met in Youth for Christ in 1974. But I thought maybe I should just become like Paul, and not marry and just go for Jesus, And I was so blessed. I remember first in October it was. Now I'm going through my reading program, 2 chapters a day, and I'm reading 1 Kings 6. And the very opening statement, and God needed to catch my attention because there was something about to be said in my spirit that really became such a significant thought. But right in the beginning of 1 Kings 6, it says, the 4th year, the 2nd month, the foundation of the house of the Lord was laid. And I had goosebumps. I thought, 4 years, 2 months. And inevitably, my mind just ran through time, and I realized that day was the first day, the 2nd month, the 4th year that I met Lydia. Now, I'm not saying that you've got to date for 4 years and 2 months and then get married. But in our moment, when I was about to tell her, listen, I'm going to have to walk out of this relationship, God says, listen, this is just the foundation time. And the next scripture, believe you me, in 1 Peter 2, where he says, like living stones, be yourselves built into a living structure. And that became the verse on our invitation cards. We married, I think, 2 months after that. In January 79, we got married. But I'm saying, God so caught my attention with our relationship in that context. But in that very same morning when I read 1 Kings 6, verse 7 was highlighted. Verse 7 says that the day that the temple was built, it was built with stone that was cut to perfection in the quarry. So much so that there was not even a noise heard of a hammer or a chisel or any iron tool to try and reshape the stones. They were perfectly cut to fit into the structure. And I was shocked to read that verse because so much of our teaching in the Christian context was about, God's going to take a lifetime to sort us out so that maybe some of us might just make grade and qualify to go to heaven one day. And then we thought, okay, God's going to make you marry this person, and then the two of you will have to just be God's hammer and chisel, and God will chisel away at your character, and maybe eventually one of you might just make it, and he might just approve of you. But the Holy Spirit just said to me, listen, the quarry where the stones were cut to perfection was the cross. Something happened in his death and in his descent into our deepest darkness, into our hell, from where we were co-quickened and co-resurrected. Something happened there that endorses God's approval of his perfection, of his redeemed image and likeness in us. And it just kind of brought such a turnabout, in our understanding that the gospel begins with the finished work of Christ. So often we've made a distant goal of perfection our ultimate, destination. And we've wasted so much time. In America, you guys play the game Chutes and Ladders, don't you? And where the whole idea is just to get to the end, And I remember one day looking at that game, and I realized, listen, we've wasted so much time going for the ladders and trying to avoid the chutes, or the snakes, as we call them in South Africa. It's snakes and ladders. We've wasted so much time in Deuteronomy 28. I fully believe that Deuteronomy 28 is outdated. We are not here to pursue blessings or to avoid curses. Ephesians 1:3 says that every blessing that heaven has, God has already lavished upon us. So what I want to say is that according to the understanding of 1 Kings 6 verse 7, we begin at the finish. God has perfected the work. He has fully reconciled us and embraced us in himself. And I'm not... I just want to add another very wonderful thought that God spoke into my spirit. A few years, or the next year, I think it was. No, it was a few years later. We were doing missionary work then, Lydia and I, in the Kangwane area, which is that border area between South Africa and Mozambique. And about 4 years later, I was asked to pastor a church in that area, a new church. And I was a bit anxious because I would go on my little, I had a scrambler motorbike, off-road motorbike, going to these remote areas from school to school and preach, and then truck the students over weekends to the farm where we lived, and Lydia would cook for them, and we would engage them for the weekend and teach them. And when I was asked to pastor this church, I had a bit of a moment where I thought, how will I be able to talk to the same people basically on a daily basis? I was a very, and I still am a lazy reader. I don't read a lot of books and that. And so during that time, I said, Lord, how are we going to do this? I'll take the job. I wouldn't mind to pastor for a season and just, see what it's like to be a pastor. And clearly the Holy Spirit reminded me of the 5 loaves and the 2 fish. And how the same 5 loaves and 2 fish were just multiplied. How Jesus just multiplied it. And everyone had their full. And there was more than enough. He didn't run out of loaves after a while and said, guys, we miscalculated our audience. We far underestimated the size of the task. There was just so much more than what people could consume. And there was left over. And it brought such peace in my heart when I saw that. And just pondering the idea of the 5 loaves and the 2 fish suddenly brought 2 Corinthians chapter 5 to mind. And like the Holy Spirit just led me there, and I opened my Bible, and there it was, verse 17 underlined. And in fact, it was the only verse I underlined in that entire chapter, 2 Corinthians 5 verse 17.
Wow.
But the Holy Spirit said to me, just start before verse 17, You've got verse 17 now, but just back a little bit. And it was like for the first time in my life, I read 2 Corinthians 5, verse 16. And Holy Spirit said to me, if you can get a hold of what Paul said in verse 16, of what made him say that, it will be your 5 loaves and 2 fishes. You will never run out of a platform to speak from. You will never run out of something to say. You'll never have to search for another sermon. They will search for you. You would not need to seek for another pulpit, And I started reading verse 16. I just wept when Paul said, therefore, from now on, we no longer know anyone according to the flesh. I was shocked. I said, what made Paul say that? And then you go back to where the therefore points to. Verse 14 says, he says, the love of Christ constrains us because we are convinced. Paul says, I'm absolutely persuaded that in the mind of God, in God's logic, in God's calculation, in God's faith, one has died for all. That's it. Then it's that all have died. So, and I was just struck. I just sat and wept, It was just such a turning point for us. And even from that next Sunday when we started preaching that message, we just saw miracles upon miracles and just people flocking into the building. I mean, we went from one service to 3 services on a Sunday, and it was just something that just blew me away. And to this day, we just so grateful. Paul saw something that happened in his death, that something happened to us when Jesus died. I mean, it's so easy for us to relate to what happens to us when our sports team succeeds or fails, for that matter. We feel so included and represented. And here the God of the universe fully represents the individual in Jesus. And that is really the shift, that brought about such a confidence to declare him, because it's so all-inclusive. Really, we don't look at anyone according to the flesh. It doesn't matter what label you wear. You carry the same value, the same beauty. God sees the same reflection of his own image and likeness in you.
That's really good. And so, you are a very controversial speaker and author. Please tell us more about how you've been able to overcome the judgments and criticism of other people who have a problem with what you preach and what you write. I feel that a lot of our listeners can relate to your story, and I know that I can as well.
So, I think when you really realize that even your worst enemy, the one who stands totally opposed to what you believe or what you see, that person's indifference or even their hostility or their animosity does not change the way the Father feels very powerful in Titus chapter 3, where he says, speak evil of no one. And then he says, show perfect courtesy to everyone. Now, the word courtesy is such a powerful word because it's not just a fake politeness. I'm not just being polite because, I'm just trying to impress you. I'm totally, absolutely convinced that you and I carry the same value. It doesn't matter what we believe differently. There is only one Father, Paul says, and he doesn't make it as a theological statement. It's the fact. An illegitimate father of lies can never compete with the one Father of the human race. So my answer to your question is simply, that in the rest of Titus chapter 3, verse 3 and 4, he says, avoid quarreling. And Facebook has become such a platform where one can so easily get distracted into debates and quarreling and trying to prove a point. And, what's the point if you can win the argument, but you've lost the friend? So heart is really, it's like the father, of the 2 sons in Luke 15, when the one son, the one who was supposed to be there and be happy with his dad, that the lost brother, the dead brother is revived and he's back in home, and he was just so angry. And then the father went out. The father left the party, as it were, to go and plead with the son and say, come on, and I love what he said in Luke 15. He says, all that I have is yours. My son, you have always been with me. And that is the Father speaking. And I believe we just, as much as we get frustrated, with people that just seem to be so stuck in their blindfold mode, they just want to argue, they just want to debate. I'm persuaded that the festive sound of the celebration of what happened in the success of the cross, in what God achieved when he led us, humanity, out of darkness into his marvelous light, into sonship, that the festive sound is irresistible. And I can see even that stubborn old other brother beginning to tap his foot. And he's drawn because the Father's pleading is ringing in his ears. So thank God we have a gospel to declare, this is just such a moment. And what an amazing time where we can Facebook and Twitter and tweet and Skype and do this kind of broadcast right now and realize what we have to say includes every single person on this planet. I love Psalm 24, verse 1. David so confidently declares that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and those who dwell in it. You know that the world is not divided between, may I say it, Republicans and Democrats. The world is one whole in the mind of God. He has broken down every wall of hostility. And he says, in the midst of deep darkness, he declares in Isaiah 60, he says, arise and shine, which I'm so encouraged about you and your testimony, Sade. You are doing this very thing. You know, you are just arising, and you've become such a beautiful, clear voice, announcing the goodness of God. The goodness of God. And he says, and the nations shall come to your light. You know, when light becomes absolutely most precious, in the deepest darkness. And people have become so disappointed in their politics, in their economics, and in their beliefs. And this is such a moment to be a bold voice, not of judgment and condemnation, but of arms embracing and loving people on the streets where we live. You know, it's just such joy.
Definitely. I want to share with our listeners of how I got connected with you and Lydia. And so I was in a ministry school from 2011 to 2012. I don't really believe probably 85% of the things I learned in that ministry school, because this was before I started walking in grace. But Rick and Melissa Wood, you know, who are also castmates on my show, they were two of the teachers for my ministry school. And they always seemed different than the other leaders and the other pastors that were there. And now I see it's because they were definitely more grace-based, you know. And so Melissa would always be posting scriptures from the Mirror Bible, which we're going to talk about that next. You know, she would always post scriptures from that. And I remember asking her one day on Instagram, I was like, what is this Bible that you're posting about? You know, and she goes, it's the Mirror Bible. Check it out here. And so I started looking it up, and then I looked, you know, saw that you were one of the people who authored it and, you know, and translated this Bible. And so I started watching your videos on YouTube, and that really, like, just totally changed my whole life. And it was like things that I had been thinking in my heart, but I had never heard anyone speak, you know, and it was just amazing. And I feel like that really catapulted me into grace. And it's been phenomenal ever since. You know, it's just been such a wonderful testimony of my life, and that I've been sharing wherever I go. And it's been wonderful to see, like how you were talking about earlier, like as we are continuing to grow in an understanding and awareness of our identity in Jesus and who God says that we are, I find myself less concerned about the criticisms of others and anything that, you know, could try to hinder me or distract me. But instead, I'm allowing myself to be focused in on what our Father says about me, you know, who God says that I am, and what Jesus, you know, found in me before time even began. And so it's been phenomenal, you know. And to our listeners, I've been, as I share with you all, I've been messaging Francois and Lydia for many years now, and I always will share with them tons of testimonies and amazing stories of how my life has transformed over the years through him and through, you know, through you, I've been able to discover Bertie Britt, and now also a good friend of mine, Don Warner, and Greg Henry. And so I'm just super thankful, you know, and I look forward to the day we're going to be able to meet in person and celebrate and all this as well. And I'm very thankful. And so if you can share with our listeners too, Francois, about the Mirror Bible and how your translation came about.
Yeah, thank you, Sade. You know, we're just so absolutely blessed, Lydia and I, with the feedback and the testimonies that come to us from all around the world, you know, really from teenagers to theologians, people who've never read the Bible, people who's just, you know, stopped reading the Bible, just fresh testimonies of people encountering the nearness of God. You know, I think for so long we've had to deal with a distant, angry God, a God with a frown on his forehead, you know, because we've blown it again, you know, we've disappointed him again, into discovering that we are actually the Father's delight, you know, that he dances over us with joy, that he has reason to believe in us. You know, for so long we've battled with the idea of faith. I remember thinking, you know, how we've tried to super define faith, to the point where you think, if I could just have 5 minutes of unbroken belief, concentrating on God, and we've really pressed into to just get to that place where we now really believe we've got our lives straightened out, until we're overwhelmed with the thought that He is mindful of us. That God's mind is full of us. He cannot get you out of His mind. And Paul makes such a powerful statement about this, in Ephesians 4, when he really, takes the wind out of our belief sails, and he says, there is only one faith. So, it's not what we believe. We can believe a million different things, and it divides us into camps and ideas, and perceptions. But here we suddenly get overwhelmed with the belief of God, that God is persuaded, first of all, about His design, His image, His likeness, that doesn't just lie potentially within us, it lies within us for real. We live now, we've moved from Hermanus to an area called Oudtshoorn, and Oudtshoorn has become very famous about 100 years ago with the ostriches, with the ostrich brooms, a lot of ostriches in the area. And in those days, an ostrich feather was worth more than an ounce of gold. An ounce of feather would sell for more than an ounce of gold. So we have a lovely story that I just wanted to throw in here. There was a family that we know very well in the Free State. Their great-grandmother was engaged to marry one of the rich, wealthy ostrich farmers here in the Oudtshoorn district. And they would go to all the big functions, where members of parliament would attend, and they would be very fancy in their gold-plated horse cart. And she had the biggest diamond, to show off her engagement to this famous man. And during her engagement, she had an encounter with Jesus. And this became an embarrassment to her man, and he eventually broke the engagement. And the story goes that about 2 years later, I think it was, she fell in love with a very, very poor farm laborer in the Free State. And she actually married this man. So you could imagine coming from that high life to just becoming a farm laborer's wife. And they lived on that farm in the Free State, and for 7 years they worked for the farmer, and then they were in a position to buy the farm, which they did. And shortly after they took title to the farm, the first gold was discovered on their farm in Oudendaalsrust in the Welkom area. This happened about 80 years ago. And you can go and Google it. That area produces 22% of the world's gold.
Wow.
I thought, oh, my Lord. This dear lady wrote a document at that time that, for many years, the land was just judged on what it could produce as far as maize were concerned. They were maize farmers. But no one saw the gold. They just saw the value of the land in the crops that it could yield. And it so touched me to realize what Jesus meant in Matthew 13:44 when he says the kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in an agricultural field. We've for so long seen one another and ourselves just on the surface, just on skin value, on face value, but we carry such a treasure. And this is what Jesus came to unveil. He came to really rent open that veil so that we can discover the gold that we carry, the amazingness of what we carry. And this is really what has brought about, our endeavor to study Scripture and to bring out of the original text the theme of God's thoughts. I love the idea of conversation and the fact that conversation began in God. When John begins to write, he's more than 90 years old, and he doesn't reflect on the mere historic record he remembers of 60 years ago when he walked with Jesus for 3 years. But it takes us right to the heart of this conversation. He says, in the beginning, en arche, was the logos, the logic, the thought. It face to face with the Father, out of whom everything that is became. We exist in that reality, and the word's destiny was not to become a book, but to become a person. And so I've been challenged now for for several years, to dig into Scripture. I started with the Mirror translation. It must be about 9 years ago now when I started with the book of James. And also about 30 years ago, I did Paul's books. I never published that translation, but I did a translation of Paul's books. I called it the Ruach translation. It was never published, unfortunately, but then years later, I was just so prompted to just dig in again. And I love the Greek language, the way that every component in the word carries significance. And so often, in our translations, we've kind of brushed over those significant little nuances that bring such fantastic scope to what we're seeing, not only in that word, but in that sentence. So, I said that I'm a slow reader, so I enjoy zooming right into the core of that word, getting into the fabric of it, and allowing the Holy Spirit to just breathe life into my spirit and enjoy that sense of overwhelmed with the word that was long before language was, long before time was, word that we are born from, the eternal, incorruptible seed. And it's been, initially, I just wanted to highlight certain chapters and certain books then, like the book of Romans and the book of Hebrews and Ephesians and books that I felt were really hinge books that opened such a vista of revelation of Christ in you. And the book of Colossians. And then as I continued with these books, I realized that, listen, we might as well tackle the entire New Testament, even those difficult books, the books that seem to not quite say what we wanted to say. And then you realize that, listen, in the breath of God, in the Ruach, in the Spirit of God, there is just such consistency. The heart of the Father. When James finally sees it, he says in James 1, he says, He's the Father of lights, with whom there is no shadow due to change. There is no hidden agenda with God. He's not this happy God one day and the next day he's in a bad mood and you better stay out of his way. He's just this God that's revealed himself. And some of the best testimonies we've got there were from young people telling us that for the first time they're not afraid to turn the page in the Bible. They've discovered the Mirror Bible and its mirror language. A key verse here is 2 Corinthians 3 verse 18, where Paul says, we all with unveiled faces. That means every single individual on this planet stands equally included in what God has unveiled in Christ. He says, where Moses is read, the veil remains. But in Christ, the veil is lifted. And what do we see? We see the glory of the Lord. But this time, not as in a display window. This time, as in a mirror. And what you see when you look in a mirror, you see you. And suddenly you're overwhelmed with the idea that you are God's idea. That you are His glory. That He loves you. That He's passionate about you. And He hasn't given up on you. Jesus is God's mind made up about you. So it's just such a powerful platform to live from and to work from and study scriptures from. So the mirror has become a very theme thought to us, in all the books that we've done so far. And as we study even further back, I'd love to have time enough to even go into some key books and chapters of the Old Testament and reflect on Jesus who is revealed there. So it's just a beautiful adventure, to do what we're doing right now. We so thank God for this opportunity.
I love it so much too, and I'm will post about, I either always share certain quotes that I hear from you in your messages or that I read in the books, and I also, share with everyone your books too, because they have been such a blessing to my life, and I feel like pairing them with your messages and reading the books at the same time, they're such great companions to each other, that you're able to expound upon things and help the person to receive and understand that much more, because I believe that people understand, and the way that we understand and receive, is in multiple ways, obviously through our heart, but through the listening and through the reading and actually seeing it. And I feel like you're able to tap into so many different avenues with that. And it's just been a huge encouragement to me. So that's why I love sharing. One of the big reasons I love sharing about your books and your quotes and everything.
Thank you, Sade. We've been so blessed. We have a friend in California who helped us develop the Mirror app. So you can download the Mirror Bible app at mirrorbible.com. And it's such a handy tool to have. One could copy and paste and easily reference the various scriptures. And as I said, it's an ongoing process. We have actually cancelled all our trips for the past 5, almost 6 years. We've traveled extensively. We've been into America every year for at least 6 weeks, most of the time for 2 months, and preaching virtually every day. And we've been so incredibly well received, and we've been so blessed by the generosity and the hospitality of the lovely American people. Lydia and I, our lives have changed, just through our visits over the past few years. And we've traveled into Europe often, and then into Africa. And then about just over a year ago now, we felt very strongly prompted to actually cancel our trips for the next few years and concentrate our time on completing the Mirror Bible, the entire New Testament. And I often said to Lydia, Paul went to prison and John was in exile to Patmos to just engage with what they were able to do then. And as much as we loved Hermanus, it's just one of the most beautiful places on this planet. Hermanus is a very busy place, and you have visitors every day, which is wonderful. But we know that God supernaturally just kind of plucked us out and placed us here in this most beautiful place in the mountains, where it's very remote. And we're so engaging now with the time that God's given us to just do the Mirror Bible. And friends of ours, we do once a year, we do a 2-week safari, a mirror safari, which is very relaxed. We take people, we were in the safari business years ago. We take them to the most beautiful spots in South Africa and let them experience for themselves firsthand, the wildlife and the scenic beauty of South Africa. And during, I think it was last year safari, our friends came up with the idea to begin what they call the Mirror Word Foundation. And you can look it up. It's on Google, Mirror Word Foundation, and they have a Facebook page where they've just come in behind us to help us have the freedom of time to complete the Mirror Bible. We're very excited about the project. Our hearts are so stirred by the opportunity to do what we're doing right now.
So what are some of your favorite testimonies you have received from your meetings and other people you get to minister to via social media and email?
I think that the most powerful testimony one can ever hear is someone who speaks of a fresh encounter with God. I love the way that the Holy Spirit brings understanding. But with all our understanding, it leads somewhere. And 1 John 5:20 is such a powerful testimony. But John says, we know that maybe I should just read 1 John 5:20 if you're from the Mirror Bible. If I can grab it quickly, you're next to me, 1 John 5:20. I know in the RSV translation, he says, we know that he has come, the Son of God has come to give us understanding to know him who is true. And we are in him who is true. So often this testimony is repeated, from young people, from people that's been caught up in drugs or abuse of any kind. I mean, we live in a world that is trapped in so much darkness. Our hearts are broken when we see around us, what happens when we read newspapers, when we listen to the news. There's just such overwhelming testimony of darkness and despair and people in absolute big. And we are so blessed to be a voice in the midst of this darkness that declares people free. And then to get the feedback of people discovering themselves not on their way to get closer to God, but wrapped up in him. That in that moment of darkness and despair, they suddenly realize that he's equally Emmanuel there. He's not more Emmanuel on certain days or in certain places on this planet. He's not more Emmanuel to the Jew than what he is to the Gentile. He is the Father of all flesh. And for people to come forward and say, listen, we've discovered the reality. We've discovered an understanding that brought us to a beautiful encounter. And, it's like falling in love, Sade, when suddenly your heart is overwhelmed. You might have known the person for a long time, and suddenly love ignites. And you know, when love ignites, love leads you on its own way, where you just desire to spend more time. You know, as you've said about Lydia and I, we met in August 1974, and I worked then on the other side of the planet, you know, just about. I was in Walvis Bay, and Lydia was in Margate in South Africa. It's right across, you know, the continent in Southern Africa. And it was way back, 1974, no emails or technology, you know, it was writing, you know, pages and pages and pages of communicating, and would reread my, you know, at school I was such a lazy essay writer, you know, I would get my brother's help to help me think and, you know, imagine an essay that I had to write, but now I've fallen in love and I cannot but communicate. So I want to encourage this testimony, you know, of this love, this romance that awakens in you, to be your testimony. You know, I'm speaking to your audience, that every one of you, you know, is closer to you than your next breath, and is passionately in love with you. So we have many testimonies that vary from, you know, across the scope, from all kinds of, from addictions to just people that's been so bored with religion and bored with God and bored with church, and I mean, of all age groups. A 78-year-old lady wrote to us some time back, and she said, you know, she fell in love with Jesus when she was 17, and then she got so involved in church business that she kind of lost her first love, and then 6 months ago someone gave her a mirror Bible, and she started reading this, and she said, I just want to testify to this flame of romance that just reignited in me, you know, and it's so exciting to know that it can make a difference and introduce people not just to a quick solution to your problem, but to an eternal romance, you know, to a God who says, I will never leave, I will never forsake you. There's not one moment that can separate you from him, you know, that we are in him who is true. And that's the beauty of this. It's a closeness, you know, it's a beautiful union that we're celebrating.
Definitely. And so you touched on this a little bit, but I want you to dive into this more. What is your, a two-part question. So what is your advice for people who want to grow in a greater understanding of God and, you know, Jesus and their spirituality, but they don't feel comfortable in a normal church atmosphere? As you already know, many people have been hurt by religion and church, but we don't want other people's choices and life's challenges to stop us from receiving God's love. And then also, what are some words of encouragement that you want to share with anyone who's struggling with hopelessness, fear, and depression?
So that, you know, I think we're living in an amazing day where social media has brought us in one another's space, you know, more than that's what's comfortable sometimes. You know, we live in the most amazing age where distance is redefined, you know, and God started this whole thing. It was way back in Isaiah 40. This is like 700 years BC. God announces to the prophet Isaiah, he says, in the wilderness, I want to announce good news. He says, every high place shall be brought low. Every valley shall be filled up. Every crooked place shall be made straight. Even the rough places made smooth. We live in a moment where the glory of God is so tangibly close to every person on this planet. And as we realize that we begin at the finished work of Christ. We begin in a union where we are brought near by his doing, not by our striving, but by his doing. So my most practical advice would be, you know, begin your day, whatever time you wake up in the morning, begin your day with a first thought, and make your first thought the awareness of his love towards you. Make your first thought, concentrate the first thought on an awareness of the Father's love for you. Begin with that reality, because that reality leads to romance. You know, it's just such an amazing thing. You know, when love ignites, you know, you don't have to go to kissing school. Love speaks its own language. It ignites within you. And there is a romance waiting for you in your situation. Doesn't matter how dark and deep your despair is, your depression, your sense of lostness, or your feeling of hopelessness. The Emmanuel Jesus is closer to you than your next breath, than your next thought. And he is the voice of eternity. And He's declaring His love over you. And living in that reality and making that your conversation, you see, then church is redefined. Then our togetherness is redefined. We're not merely grouped together because we've got to do the church thing. We are just drawn together because there's a conversation where the one ignites and edifies the other, where our fellowship is one where we know it's like a deep knowing that I'm not going to be disappointed here, because in this conversation there's no space for a different conversation, and this conversation leads to acknowledging every good thing that is in us in Christ. The scripture that gives such context to our fellowship is Philemon, verse 6. You can read it in any translation, and Paul so beautifully says there that our koinonia, our fellowship of faith, ignites when we acknowledge every good thing that is in us in Christ. And beginning to live from that perspective changes the next person you meet on the street into a wonderful opportunity, not to Bible punch them or try and get them to join your group, but just to appreciate that person. And living from appreciation, the energy, the life of God's appreciation and God's love begins to flow. And then, it's impossible not to grow. Here we are, where we are sitting right now. We have just planted a lawn. We've planted these plugs of grass, and we've got beautiful water sprayers on it now. And we've just created an environment, and it's spring season. So we've created an environment where this lawn is just taking off. We're seeing little green shoots popping out everywhere, And so the whole, as we said earlier on, you cannot grow in perfection. God's not going to love you more a year or two from now. He's loved you for eternity. But you will certainly have ample opportunity to grow in your understanding of the love of God for you and for others. He desires to love people through you. So often our problems can draw us so into ourselves, and we get like entangled in that knot of self-pity or self-awareness. But I challenge you to just turn out to others and just see how your conversation and your touching and your smile and your connecting with people outside of your little bonsai world blesses you and ignites you and gives you such an amazing opportunity to feel significant. God believes that your life is significant. Doesn't matter what people said about you, what people gossiped about you, what you thought about yourself. God sees you as absolutely, irreplaceably significant. You are positioned on this planet where you can make a difference. Your voice, your presence, your beingness already makes a difference. Now imagine igniting the fellowship of faith, the conversation of faith, where on Facebook, on Twitter, I just find a sentence that I could say, even if it's just a few words, that'll bless somebody, that will uplift somebody, that'll become a voice of hope to someone else. It so blesses you, that you become addicted to it today. I'm absolutely addicted to the feeling of blessing. Feelings are not that important, but they're beautiful. It's wonderful to feel blessed. Yeah. And I'll tell you many, many times, you don't have the feeling, but so be it. You carry on with what you know is true, and you stay with that, and you stay on course. And Holy Spirit, so precious, and He desires and delights in surprises. And I want to encourage the folk that are listening to us, to this conversation, that you are not beyond God's reach. He's so near you. He's so one with you. He so desires to overwhelm you and to surprise you with His nearness. Just begin to live from there. Remember the idea of the game that we mentioned of the chutes and ladders. Begin at the finish. See yourselves seated together with Christ. Because this is what God says. Paul writes this in Ephesians 2, verse 5. He says, while we were still dead in our trespasses and in our sins, God co-quickened us. I mean, that's one of the most powerful statements we could ever hear, is that something happened to us without our permission. While we were still dead, we were just going in the wrong direction, the speed of light. And God says, while we were there, in that state, God co-quickened us in Christ. Something already happened to us when Jesus died, when he descended into hell, when he was co-raised, when he was raised, we were co-raised together with him. And we weren't only raised together with him and then left in midway. We are seated together with him, seated together with Christ. Now engage your thoughts with the reality of your co-seatedness. And it's such a wonderful place to live from. So I think the mirror language, to sum it up, is really the opportunity to live from rather than towards. We have wasted so much time. We have wasted so much money trying to get there, when there is where we are to begin with. Listen, hear me today. There is where you are to begin with. The word is near unto you. It's in your mouth and in your heart. This is the word of faith. This is what we're declaring. God's belief has found a voice in you. In him you live and move and have your being. And God desires to live and move and have his being in you, where you are right now.
And also, I want to take it even further with our listeners, in agreement with everything Francois said, and that I do believe as we continue to grow in an awareness and understanding of just how much we matter to God and who we were created to be in Jesus already before time began, I do believe that you will feel his love all day and every single day. Now in my life, there's not a moment of the day or time when I don't feel his presence, his love for me near, because I realize it's not something, as Francois was saying, it's not something that I'm going to, it's something that I live from. So even in the biggest contradiction or the biggest challenge of my life, even on the worst day, it's still my best day because I know that I'm so loved by my Father.
Absolutely.
I always feel him close. And God will not, for you having a life where you hear all about him and all about his love and all that Jesus accomplished on the cross and you not feel it. He's not into that. Like for true love, you actually do feel it. It's just as much as a feeling and a belief as it is a choice. And so God will meet you wherever you are, and he will empower you, and he will help you to feel it and help you to know it. And so we want to encourage you in that. And I know religion has taught us for so many years that you won't always feel it and all those things. No, you may not feel always happy all the time because life can be challenging or whatever, but you can feel the joy of God, and you can always feel his love for you. And so I want to thank you so much for your time on the show tonight, Francois. It has been such a pleasure chatting with you. If you can let everyone know where they can purchase your books, how they can listen to your messages, and stay updated with you on social media.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sade. I'm so excited. I just want to read you today's Facebook update. It says, the most liberating joy is to engage with God's gaze. His mind is full of you. You're so welcome to follow us on Facebook. We have several English pages. Our main page is full, but you can be a follower. They don't limit you on followers. So you're so welcome to engage with us. We try and post something every day. And then, of course, there are many YouTubes. I don't control the YouTube messages. People have recorded several and posted several YouTube messages. And we're also getting our website updated, mirrorword.net, mirrorword, one word, .net. And unfortunately, we've lost a lot of the free downloads, which we're trying to get back online again for you. And then our books can be purchased either on Kindle. All our books are available on Kindle. That little booklet, The Logic of His Love, is a very popular little booklet. It's available on Kindle, or you can purchase the printed copy through Amazon or Barnes & Noble. And if you want to buy, often people want to buy a few books, that they want to hand out and give away. If you want to buy 5 or more books, then you can write to us at info@mirrorword.net. info@mirrorword.net, and we'd order them directly from the printers. We print in London, a few places in America, and in Australia. So you can just speak to us, and then we can make sure that you get the material. God bless you.
Awesome.
It's such a joy to speak to you and to
Thank
you so much, precious Sade.
And thank you. I love you and Lydia so much. And I want to let our listeners know I have been able to save a lot of the audio messages from their old website. So if you are interested in receiving any of them, let me know, because I have a lot saved from Francois, from Bertie, from a lot of the other speakers that they've had at their Mirror Word School. So I can send you the MP3s of those messages to your email, and that way you can be able to listen to them whenever, because that's what I do.
Fantastic.
I listen to Francois all the time, and I read his books all the time, and all my other favorite speakers. So we want to thank you so much for being on the show tonight. Please send Lydia my love, and I look forward to the day when either you do come back to America, or I'm praying that for a trip where you guys are in South Africa. I can visit you.
Wonderful. We can't wait to hug your neck and to just see you face to face. Thank you so much today. God bless you.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Next up, we have Britt Nicole featuring Lecrae with Ready or Not. Keep listening to the Sade Champagne Show on GrindHard Radio. Young Living essential oils are known throughout the world for their purity, quality, and potency. But that's not the whole story. The oils start with high-quality seeds planted in nutrient-rich soil that grow into strong, potent botanicals. They work with the finest oils and hold to the seed-to-seal standard, and ensuring it meets that standard through a series of rigorous tests. Young Living is a universally known household name that is revered and respected for the countless benefits it brings to humanity. Propelled by the world's purest essential oils and oil-infused products, along with the passionate commitment to empowering individuals to whole life wellness. Bring the pureness of Young Living essential oils to your home by contacting independent distributor Teresa Whittington, and to read her story on her website, go to teresaw.myoilsite.com. That's spelled teresaw.myoilsite.com. You can also reach her at teresawoilsite@gmail.com. That's spelled teresawoilsite@gmail.com. Are you looking for a dynamic musical artist, performer, host, or inspirational speaker for your next event? What about a mentor, vocal instructor, or workshop leader for your school, company, or seminar? Contact Sade Champagne for countless professional services that are sure to fit your particular need. She is an in-demand, award-winning, and critically acclaimed musical artist, performer, inspirational speaker, and entrepreneur who is invited all around the world. She is known for having a powerful voice, turning ideas into action, creating, directing, and executive producing popular, charitable, and inspirational events, and bringing out the gold in others. Her services are for all ages, backgrounds, and environments. Contact Sade Champagne at SadeChampagnemusic@gmail.com. That's Sade Champagne Music @gmail.com to book her for your next event or project.
This is Veronica Esquivel-Winters from the Wellness Made Simple segment, and thank you for listening to the Sade Champagne Show on GrindHard Radio.
Welcome back to the Sade Champagne Show on GrindHard Radio. Our next segment of the night is Charity Spotlight. This is where I highlight some of my favorite charitable organizations. I have a special guest on the line. She's a dear friend of mine. Two terminal cancer diagnoses didn't slow down Rachel SHUR. Since her diagnosis, of end-stage leukemia in 2006 and 2007, Rachel has been inspiring patients with her positive attitude. Through her 2.5-year journey, she has embraced her cancer experience, and it turned into something greater than herself, an organization called UCAN, United Cancer Advocacy Action Network, which focuses on bridging the gap between cancer patients and their immediate needs locally and nationwide. To date, UCAN has helped inspire, motivate, and educate over 6,000 cancer patients across the country through a variety of programs, through the award-winning 501c3 cancer nonprofit grassroots 100% volunteer-run organization. Rachel hopes to grow UCAN into the largest financial support organization for cancer patients. You can count on us. Hope we can count on you. UCAN hopes to resurrect their gas assistance program, which in 2013 allowed UCAN to provide $25 gas cards per month to cancer patients in the Ventura County and LA County areas for 1 year. They hope to focus on Ventura County, and as the program grows with support and funding, they will expand it to other countries. Hey, Rachel, how are you doing tonight?
I am fabulous. Counties, other counties.
Yes, other counties.
I'm fabulous. Thank you.
It's probably a typo in there somewhere. So
it's
I'm
okay.
going to take it away.
Knowing me.
It's okay. I'm going to let you take it away and share with everyone your story and what you have been up to, because I know you're traveling the country right now, and share with everyone how they can get involved. So
very exciting.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much for having me on. So just like Sade said, I've had terminal cancer twice. Once in 2006 and once in 2007, and I found out about that because I got into this car accident that saved my life, and that's the only reason that I found out I had terminal cancer. And it wasn't just dealing with cancer. It was dealing with the chemotherapy that I had. I was put into a drug-induced coma. I had to relearn how to read and how to write and how to walk. Then I went through brain surgery and a stem cell transplant and total body radiation. And you know, those were all the different treatments that I had over 2.5 years. The way that I dealt with that kind of stuff, and we all go through different things in our lives, is I dealt with it with a really great positive attitude, and I laughed and smiled a lot. And as crazy as that sounds when I tell people my story, I always find ways to laugh about stuff. Okay, so when my hair fell out, and the first time it fell out, I admit I cried, okay? The next time it fell out, what I did was I laughed. I said, oh, my gosh, my hair fell out. Now what do? I get to wear a whole bunch of really sexy hats and wigs or scarves, okay? But here's the reality. I didn't do that. I just sported my sexy bald head. And when my hair came back, and it came back different colors, and people marveled on how fabulous I looked, I always said, well, you can get this hairstyle by getting chemotherapy, and your hair will fall out and come back all new and fresh and beautiful. So that was my attitude the entire time that I went through everything with cancer. And here's the deal. This is why I started UCAN. My entire life had changed, and I felt like in 2006, I felt like I had lost everything, because I couldn't go back to work again. I had to live with my mom. She had to take care of me. I couldn't take care of myself. I felt like I had lost my entire independence. I lost a lot of friends, and I know a lot of us go through that kind of stuff. And the reality that I had come to was God had saved my life for a reason. So that meant that there was a bigger purpose that I had to do. And so after volunteering for 2 other cancer organizations, I said, you know what? This is not enough. I have to do more. And so I started UCAN. And UCAN focuses on bridging the gap between cancer patients and their immediate needs locally and nationwide. And what this means is we help connect patients to all of the resources and all of the information that's available to them that they're not necessarily getting when they're getting diagnosed. A really good example is when I went through chemotherapy and total body radiation, my teeth fell out, and my oncologist didn't know anything about it. The radiation techs, the social workers, the nurses, nobody knew why that was happening, and that was because of the chemotherapy and the radiation deteriorating my teeth. Now, what I found out after that was I could have prevented that with something like a fluoride tray or a fluoride varnish. for $200 instead of having over $45,000 worth of dental damage that I can't afford to fix, okay? And this is not just happening to me. This is a lot of patients that are affected by this kind of side effect or direct effect as a result of cancer treatment. So I wanted to be able to provide as much information to people like me who had cancer, no matter what type of cancer they had, no matter where they lived, no matter what age they were. I wanted people to feel like they had a place to go to really talk to somebody. So UCAN focuses on a multitude of different programs. The biggest thing is customized resources, and we provide resources to patients all across the country. And Inspiration and Hope, we have a preventative care dental program, a personal fundraising program. We give out healthy eating tips, different treatment options, and everything else that you can think of. We're really, really focused on bridging that gap that patients have. Probably something that some of you might not know is a lot of the cancer organizations that are out there no longer offer financial assistance. So in 2013, a lot of cancer organizations cut that. And that's why our focus is really on finding a way to get to that point where we can provide more financial assistance to cancer patients locally in our community and all across the country, because that is a huge gap for people with cancer. So, Sade, you mentioned that I've been doing a lot of really exciting stuff, and yes, I'm on the road. I'm currently in Biloxi, Mississippi, and earlier in June, I traveled across the country with my boyfriend. We did a You Can Change a Life road trip. We drove 10,500 miles in 41 days, and we visited some of the cancer patients that we'd helped across the country. And that was really an exciting trip because these were people that I had worked with 4 years ago, 2 years ago, and that I had never met. And I was meeting them for the first time and really hearing what impact our organization had in their lives. So I just wanted to share a couple of those stories. One of them that we met was Nick and Teresa. They live in New Jersey. Nick had been diagnosed with cancer 2 years prior, and his story was crazy. They had just gotten married, and he had this great job, and he got diagnosed with cancer, could no longer work. The job fired him. He lost his insurance, and then he had to fight them to try to get money to pay their bills. And, you know, they were like tens of thousands of dollars and young. I mean, like a young, brand new, newly married couple fighting cancer. And they set up through our personal fundraising program, and we taught them how to raise some funds to pay their bills and their expenses, and they were totally grateful for what we could do for them. Another story is we kind of randomly met this woman in Vegas, and her story was really impactful. She had a $130,000 a year job, and then she got diagnosed with cancer, and she completely lost her entire income. She went from that much money to nothing. And she had to pay $85,000 out of pocket. So when we talk about financial needs, I mean, a lot of people aren't thinking about stuff like that. I mean, if you get diagnosed with cancer, if you lose your job, if you don't have anybody else, how are you going to pay for those types of expenses? And here's the reality, folks. There are not a lot of organizations that are offering help for people like this woman that we met in Vegas, or Nick and Teresa in New Jersey, or even this other story, Nikki in Utah. So Nikki was super young when her dad was diagnosed with cancer, and he was diagnosed with a rare cancer. She lived in California with her husband and her 4 children. Her dad didn't have anybody else to take care of him, and there's absolutely no funding for caregivers. So Nikki had to uproot herself from her life, leave her family in California, and move to Utah to take care of her father. And that is hard. I mean, that is hard for anybody. Could you really imagine, like, leaving your family to go take care of another family member and not seeing your family for over a year and a half because you have to help the other person? Think about if there was a program that could offer financial assistance for caregivers to help Nikki so that somebody would be there to help her father. I mean, like, that kind of stuff is financially draining and devastating. And, you know, I hear these stories all the time, and I'm like, okay, what can I do? How can I help more people? How can I do more? And this is what UCAN is about. I mean, like, our huge goal is to help cancer patients financially because they're not getting what they need. And I'm going to tell you, the biggest financial needs that cancer patients have, just like I just mentioned to you, insurance, transportation, and gas. How am I going to get to my treatments? Healthy eating. How am I going to eat healthy when I'm dealing with cancer because I shouldn't have sugar? And caregivers. I mean, we have to see that there is this humongous gap, and there are so many patients across the country that are just not getting the support. And it is so sad for me to see that because I want to help everybody. I'm only one person. I'm only one person, and I can't do it all myself. So, you know, our organization is 100% volunteer run. We're a grassroots organization. We've won awards like the National Gold Presidential Volunteer Service Award from the President and a grant from Kaiser Permanente in Woodland Hills, and a lot of other recognition for what we're doing. But what we're really, really needing are more people to get involved with UCAN. People that are really passionate about helping other people, people that really want to do something where they feel like they're a part of an organization. A lot of my experience with those other organizations that I volunteered for, I never really felt like I was connected to it. And UCAN is more like a family. I mean, like, we want some great volunteers. We need some help at events. So we need help with committees and building a stronger board and being able to help more patients across the country and really impacting the lives of more and more people. And, you know, we always need donations, but the biggest thing is we need volunteers to help us run everything and really, really help a lot of people. Is that good?
That's amazing, Rachel. You're such a wonderful speaker, and your story is incredible. And I'm glad we're able to share a bit of that tonight. And I'm just so thankful that you're alive and you're still here. Please let everyone know how they can get in touch with you, how they can donate, how they can volunteer. Give them all the links and whatever information they need as we wrap up our time together.
Definitely. So you can check out more information about UCAN on our website, which is www.ucaan.org. You can also search me and UCAN on Facebook. If you just look at my name, Rachel SHUR, SHUR, you'll find my fabulous face, and you'll be able to add me, and then you'll see that we have a UCAN help page. We have a UCAN Share the Hope jewelry page. We have multiple pages. You can even look up United Cancer Advocacy Action Network on Facebook. You can also find us on Twitter and on YouTube. If you type in UCAANORG, you can call me on the phone, 805-479-1032. You can email me, UCAANORG@yahoo.com. And if you want to get involved, just contact me via email, phone, through our Facebook page. And if you want to make a donation, I think the easiest way for people to make a donation is if you have a PayPal account, you can just send money as a friend to that email address I mentioned, the UCAANORG@yahoo.com. You send money as a friend, and they do not take any money out of the donation, or you can always mail us a check. And all of our address and contact information is on our Facebook and our website as well. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rachel. Everyone, you'll notice
Thanks for having me.
Tagging her. Oh, you're so welcome, sweetheart. I hope you enjoy the rest of your trip. And as everyone, you know, I've been tagging her on Facebook and Twitter as well, so that way you can check out where she is. And to our listeners, do you dream of making a difference and traveling the world to help those in need? Some of your favorite charity to support. I want to hear your heart on this. Tweet, Facebook, or Instagram me using hashtag Sade Champagne Show or GHR or Charity Spotlight. I love live posting and tweeting with you throughout every single episode. Our next segment of the night is a two-part segment, Entrepreneurs on the Move and New Artist Spotlight. Artist Spotlight is where I feature rising and veteran artists who are making waves in the entertainment music industry. Entrepreneurs on the Move is where I feature rising and veteran entrepreneurs, creators, and innovators who are changing up the game, inspiring others, and making bold moves. This guy is all those things in one. Too Tallin was started by Travis Huff. He's 6'8", y'all. After discovering his passion for producing and performing music that was different. His goal was to take it back to its old school roots, but with futuristic new school vibes. The end result is music that pushes all genres of pop, hip-hop, rap, and rock. Why Too Tallin? The name was developed from his unmistakable height. Too Tallin captures his most recognizable asset. His ongoing goal is to make money profited from his music and give it directly back to empower future generations of musicians with instruments, recording time, songwriting, and promoting their music. Too Tallin has been licensed to ABC Television, Quicksilver, Akami, and Billabong. Currently, they're working with agencies like Play Up Music and ADM to license their music, and they're always looking for more partnership and exposure opportunities. Hey, Too Tallin, how are you doing tonight?
What is going on, Sade? Doing good. How's your evening going today?
It's so good to have you on. We are excited to have you on the Sade Champagne Show for episode 33 of season 2.
Cool. I'm excited to be here, and thank you so much for the wonderful intro. And I'm excited to bring some impact to those that are trying to do music, and also make some money doing that along the way.
Yeah, you're a pretty phenomenal person, so I'm ecstatic for us to chat.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, we, music now has changed a lot for those that are listening, that are making music and writing music, anything out there. It's changed a lot. So you have a lot of availability. You can put your music out on iTunes and everywhere, but you also get paid less than ever. I mean, I heard a recent interview on YouTube that said, if you had 1 million subscribes or downloads or listens or CDs sold in the 60s, it would basically be close to $45,000 for a songwriter. And now today, if you were to sell or stream 1 million streams and still be the same songwriter, it's literally less than $40. And
oh my gosh.
When you think about that, I mean, it can be kind of disheartening as a musician that wants to make music. And the thing I think now more than ever, you just have to think as music is a great way for people to introduce your brand and introduce who you are in a creative way, and then have other things to support you along the journey.
Right. So when were you first interested in music, entertainment, and performing?
Yeah, absolutely. I really started probably in about 2006 or 7 when I had a little extra money, and me and my buddy were talking one day, and we said, hey, it'd be really fun to make music that didn't have any profanity. It could be listened to by grandmothers to, young children, and then obviously catering to, a dance and fun entertainment party vibes. But where it wouldn't offend anybody, where it really would just not offend anybody. And so it was in 2006 we started making music, and some of those songs that we first released in 2006 are still being purchased and streamed, and we're making money on them. And like with anything, as a musician, as you build your catalog of music, your one, big song that you could write, a couple years from now could now bring revenue to all your older music. And we see that today with if someone picks up on maybe a new song or something like that they like, as we go after different genres of music, because we're not stuck in one. We basically now then maybe, someone says, oh, that's cool, let me download, another one of the songs. And we can see that because as an artist, you can now see and track your sales yourself. Instead of having a label, you can actually track it yourself. So I look at music as an entrepreneurship endeavor. And if you look at it that way as a artist now, there's just lots of things you can do to make money. You can sell merchandise directly. You can do shows, and you can do everything, and it can come through you. But you got to get the views, and you got to get people watching it too. Otherwise, that's the hard part too. Is you have to build that momentum. And too many artists I know, to be honest with you, after I've been doing this now, let's see here, coming up, let's say on 10 years, have come and gone. And they lose the passion and motivation and because it can't be a standalone business unless you have just off-the-chart talent as well as a lot of luck on your side, because there's so many talented people out there. Look at The Voice, look at American Idol, and how many people are just so talented and they just never make it big, or people that make it big and then they squander their money. And so you have to think of it as a business, and there's a lot of avenues to make money being a musician, but then also the reality is, hey, the first 5 years could be really tough, you know, and it might not be able to make it all only on that, but try to find something else, or, you know, work a job or do something else that complements it and make music on the side, and then obviously track the sales. Because I look at it now, hey, if you could make, you know, $100 a month streaming and selling your music, that's like, you know, there's some people that have made huge contracts back in the day, and then their final check was like less than a couple $100. You know, go look it up. New Edition and some of these huge artists that just were in bad deals, and they toured the world, but when it's all recouped, your check is, your signing was $1 million, but when it's all said and done, we recouped $900 and $998,000 and $970, and all of a sudden your check is, you know, $73.
But people don't understand that. Like, when you get they don't understand that, though. Like, when you get $1 million record deal, they're not giving you $1 million. They invested $1 million in you, and anything that you make over the $1 million, like if you made $1 million and 1 cent, that 1 cent is yours because you owe them $1 million.
Exactly.
So you went to my next question. I want to chat with you about. Have you always been passionate about entrepreneurship, and what does being an entrepreneur mean to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think entrepreneurship, you know, usually, you know it early on. There's some people that catch entrepreneurship later in life just because of, obviously, computer, YouTube, and things like that, you know, can inspire people. However, really, at the end of the day, I mean, I was always selling things. I mean, I remember one time we had a tree branch broke down, and it was like Dallas Cowboys versus San Francisco 49ers, and me and my brother created little ribbons and put little things and sold them to the neighborhood, and sold stuff out of our garage, you know, just randomly going around to the neighbors and asking if they wanted to buy something, and had a paper route, and had always been in businesses throughout my life, you know, and then really got a chance to work in a corporate environments and saw what that looks like for 5 years, some of the best years of my life. Working in television and broadcasting and advertising, and get to work with advertisers like McDonald's and big clients, and really getting to understand advertising and marketing. And then it you know, really kind of just put me into the place where I am now, where I'm you know, doing the real time thing and managing my own business, being my own entrepreneur, being in charge of my own time, and you know, we've been now coming up on our 7th year of business here. So June was our 7th year. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And you know, it's every day is a grind. You know, you're working every day. But the thing about the internet now specifically, and just about you know, being in business, is that there's just so you don't have to be necessarily in one place. You can be all over. You can be traveling with your dreams and running your business. And it's all scalable, you know, as you grow, you can scale, and you don't have to be stuck to a big loan. And I truly believe the best business ideas happen on a PowerPoint. So anyone that's out there that thinks they have a business, please, you know, pull a PowerPoint and start putting your thoughts and ideas together, and refine that presentation over the many years of your business. And it'll be your pitch, it'll be your story, and it'll start out ugly. And I mean, I remember our first couple pitch decks that we created were not pretty, not pretty at all, to be honest with you, Sade. But you know, we refined the logo. We once we started making sales, we got a better logo, and then all of a sudden you know, eventually over time, you know, we invested to where now our brand, Real Time Outsource, is now trademarked. So anyone that infringes on that brand, or someone could see value in that brand and say, hey, this is an awesome brand, I want to purchase this from my company that does way more things, and then that's a valued asset, you know. And but we didn't start out that way, you know. It's been 7 years, but you know, we finally got our so too many, I think, entrepreneurs unfortunately think you have to get it all right away.
And you're so right, because I always tell people that you need to start where you are and learn along the way, you know. And that's why I love writing so much notebooks, because that's where a lot of my dreams and ideas have taken place, is through a notebook and through that type of idea. So tell us about a time when you wanted to quit, and how did you overcome that moment? It could be personally or professionally, whatever you'd like to share.
Sure. I mean, I think it happens quite honestly after running a business like this, of a social media business, which is different than most other businesses where clients are asking you, hey, post this right away, or hey, get this posted. So really it's a 7-day-a-week business when you're talking about managing hundreds of clients and brands for your partners and for people that you help. So quite honestly, within the last couple of years, you think that. I mean, I just went on my honeymoon, as you know. I got married, and
congrats.
I went on. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Yeah, we went on a honeymoon, and you're sitting out there in the middle of Fiji or Hawaii, and you're just thinking about, wow, this is a different life, and I'm still able to manage my business. I'm still able and so grateful. So honestly, in those moments when I have that, because I think it happens quite often, but I am a more optimistic type of person. So what I try to do is I just try to, acknowledge it, what I'm feeling, acknowledge how I'm feeling at that point, and then, kind of move on. I mean, hey, that you can't be in a pity party for yourself forever. There's other things to do. Not every day is going to be bright and shiny. You're going to have down days. You're going to lose customers. You're going to make a lot of customers happy. You're going to make your team happy. You're going to make a team member not happy. That's someone that's on your team. You're going to, and that's just a part of life. And then you're just going to sometimes just have a down day. And there's uncontrollable factors. Your team can lose in sports or whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Right.
You have to take that moment in. If you're an entrepreneur or a musician or whatever, say you put out a new single and it didn't go big or whatever. Hey, take the moment in. Don't get frustrated by it. Use it as a motivation for your next song. And don't worry about the numbers always, because it's not always about the numbers. It's not only about numbers. It's really about quality of audience, number one, and pushing past and creating a ton of content, creating a ton of music. I mean, there's some great examples of this in music and podcasting and on YouTube. I mean, where they're creating 5 videos a day, and some of them only have 500 views, but they're highly influential views, and then they have thousands of videos out there. So they're getting tons, and a couple of them over time will go viral, because that's just the nature of the internet. I mean, the more stuff you create. So I believe the same thing about music, and I find myself, to be honest with you, it's something, it's hard to do once you become successful in business, and your business becomes more successful than you make on music, and that's a fine line that everyone has to embrace, because for me, I could be out touring the world playing, here and there and making the minimum gigs or paying for tickets or whatever, the deals are to play, but that's not going to make me any more money than sitting back in my office, releasing new music on the internet, promoting it, working with influencers, or trying to work on things to basically, have other people help promote it. And then at the end of the day, just putting it out there, and you never know. You just never know. I mean, it's one of those things. It's the luck of the draw on all of them. And at least at that point, those that are listening to music, you're not out any money. You own all the copyrights. You own everything. You own all, that's the main thing I would always make sure is, go to copyright.gov and just send in your music and make sure it's copyrighted underneath your name. If you think it's a good song, especially if you're making money from it, go out there and copyright your music. It's $25 or $50, I think it is, to do online. Really easy to do. And make sure you own the music, because that's the other way we make money in music, is basically licensing the music and having a company, a trusted company or a partner that is willing to revenue share the sales that they make from it. So if they and where you're getting a fair share of the revenue, a fair share. It's not going out to other managers and then other people siphon that off. It's no, they're going to bring you a contract deal to have your music licensed into, let's just say, an Australian extreme sports outdoor game. It's a video game. Let's just say that was one of our very first licensing, and it was hey, it wasn't bad. It was over $3,000. They got the $1,500, $1,700 something dollars, and we got $1,700, and that was our first look at, hey, this is fun just because we can make music, and now our studio's paid off. I'm looking at our studio right now, it's all paid off. From
I always tell people that there's so many ways that they can make money in the industry and other industries, but it's just being creative and how to see it can come about. And I love that about you, is you are very, very creative, and so I want to know, how do you stay confident while working in industries that have been known to tear people down?
like I said, I mean, the biggest thing is I realized probably early on in my business, maybe 5 years ago when I started real time, it was about 2009. But I had realized that about in 2009 that music was a great passion and hobby, and I still wanted to keep doing it. In fact, I still had a bigger budget to keep working on music and working with bigger artists and everything. But it wasn't going to be how it was going to majorly pay my bills or help provide a living for other people. And now what's in real time, what we've created is where we have a lot of team members that make a living on helping manage our work for our clients, you know, and that was something that I wasn't able to do. And so I realized that obviously, you know, that, hey, this is bringing more money in. We haven't had a huge hit record where it was just like life-changing money, you know, to be real with you. If we do, it's going to be in the future, and it's going to be, it's going to be something that we, you know, own all the copyrights to. Our business will own all the rights to it. We're not going to be signed by any labels, although we've been approached many labels. To be honest with you, we've been approached by many different labels, but they can't do anything more than we can do.
Right.
They can't do anything more. They're going to give you a loan to spend more advertising. They're going to just spend you. Right. All they're going to do. Those that are listening out there, remember, a record deal is like you going on Google AdWords and spending $1 million of your own money, but they're going to do it for you. So think about that. It's not necessarily what are they going to do more for you? What are they? I mean, in certain situations, I agree. If you're a certain level artist, if you are a Beyonce, a Katy Perry, a Taylor Swift, you know, you have
the top 1%.
You have control and power and awesome for them because they are awesome musicians and I love all their music. So, but you have control and power to cut that bigger record deal, and those companies at that level can do a lot for you, you know, because there's so much going on. But anyone down on the bottom coming up, unless you are just off the charts talented, you know, and under 18 years old and you know, they're not, you know, doing much with people that are of older age, you know, like myself, I'm 34 years old. But at the end of the day, too, like I said, they can't do much for you because they're just going to give you a loan unless it's the right situation. Unless you already have a bunch of sales going on yourself, and there's already a bunch of traction, and when you can come back to them and say, hey, I want a better deal. I don't want 360 deals. I don't want, you know what I mean? And you could, and that's where artists are, you know, it's sad. They get, you know, they unfortunately get taken advantage of in this business.
Like you say, though, you know, it's important for you to be able to own the things that you have. If you guys have not seen Too Tall perform live, you need to see him perform live. He is an explosive, dynamic, phenomenal performer, and I feel like I'm an amazing workout session, and I'm just super excited and love dancing with him. So tell us about your new song, Do It. It's super fun, and it got me pumped up.
Yes.
And I could totally do it during my workout. So tell us about your new song.
So it's in collaboration with one of my local producer friends that I've worked with a variety of songs on drafts, and he's done a lot of artists, big-time artists, as well as most every famous local artist that's made it out of here is usually working with him. He's a really great producer, and so he brought this record to me. I thought I wanted a record that would be less about me and the lyrics and things like that, and more just about kind of just giving someone an amped up good time. And so he brought me the track, and then I went and kind of produced on top of it and adding my own vibes and things like that to the record to kind of give it the full dynamic that it had. And it's really focused on fitness. It's focused on people working out, something that's more and more people are doing these days. It's a great way to stay healthy, and I just found that, you know, it'd be fun to kind of tackle a new song. Plus, at the end of the day, those that are on social media know that fitness is a huge area of interest on Instagram. And it's no hidden secret. Those that are in fitness, for a lot of different reasons, obviously we know, but it's a huge area. It's just a huge area to tackle as far as fitness and as far as the hashtag specifically. And so we thought it'd be a good way to see if we can make a song correlating to then basically be able to drive it through our Instagram as a channel, obviously other channels too, Twitter and things like that, but using hashtags specifically as a theme. And I think it might be a good strategy for those that are listening, making music, to try to really focus your music on different segments or if you want to call it organic social areas that will get you extra love. I mean, because literally we'll just do posts about it, and people are like, all fitness brands and Fit Radio and all these brands are liking our posts and, you know, things like that, and it's only because of the hashtag we're using. If we put new music, if we put, you know, EDM, if we put a certain hashtag, which maybe the app applies to a different type of post, that is not going to draw in necessarily the type of audience that we want for this fitness. So think about that when you're doing your songs. And we're going to do the same thing with a big new country artist that we're producing a record with, Gregor Ross right now. That he's off. He's a really doing some things in the music business, and do a country, you know, a country turned up kind of EDM pop song, and
I could totally
have a good
see
time
you doing
with it.
that.
Yeah,
I could totally
like
see you doing that. You're not an artist that's going to be limited.
That was our whole point with when we started. It was never to have a certain sound and just to kind of make fun music and never have really any expectations either. Because if we make it big, my goal will be to go back to all the music programs across the country and hook them up. If it ever comes to that point. I mean, like I said, right now what we do with all the money that we do is we put it back into the promotions, we put it back into the music, we put it back into upgrading the equipment, and we haven't made it big. We haven't had a huge hit record, but I've had on my business side a great fortune to have a great business that I've created in the last 7 years, and that's helped me basically perpetuate the music as a passion, but also do it bigger than ever, you know, and it's
That's
fun
fair.
to be able to do that because you keep the passion going. A lot of people would say, hey, just, you know, don't do music anymore and just do your other business, but then you don't lose the creativity and the fun.
That's good. I love that. So what else do you have coming up that you'd like to share?
Right now we're just making music. You know, we just my biggest thing to everyone out there listening is just, you know, make sure that if you're doing music, you do it for, number one, yourself, and number one is keep that at heart. Don't write music necessarily for other people. Write it for yourself. Think of Taylor Swift. Think of some of the best artists that write music, and some of the music is it's, you know, inspiring to listen to because it's just their story. And I always think about that myself when I'm writing, but then also have fun, you know, have fun with your music. And then realize that, hey, business is tough in the music business, so have other things that inspire you. And if you create a big enough portfolio, I'll tell you the secret with musicians is if you have a big enough portfolio or audience at some point you create, brands, businesses, other artists will want to reach out to you and ask you to help them promote their music, and they'll pay you. So that's the other big one. That's Leaper that we're actually working on another business, me and a couple partners on, where it's called influencer marketing, where you've created your own big influence, and now you've basically been able to now monetize it. Now you're able to work with a brand that wants to promote their new music app, and because you're the perfect genre, they're willing to pay you $50 a post, which, hey, that's pretty good for anybody.
Yeah.
Or, you know, obviously on the high scale, we know the Kardashians are rumored to make $250,000 a post. That's, you know, that's a little extreme, but anywhere in between, right? Anywhere between 50 or let's say 50 or $20 and 200,000. That's a lot of room for an artist if they build a community, if they have an audience, to then you know go and monetize it. You know, and that's the other way that I think artists can really think about their music is it's just the starting point. Once you're making music, then you get more new followers, then you can monetize them other ways through your social media posting, through other brands that you want to work with, and there's so many other ways. But the key thing is to always keep it at heart that you might not be successful ever and on a huge level, and that's okay.
Right.
You know, that's okay.
Right.
You can have a huge influence and make a lot of money and be successful financially, not having the same amount of numbers because it's just a different game now. And
so where can
do it for the passion.
Follow you? Yeah, exactly. And the passion is so huge for that. So where can they follow you and stay updated with your career as we're wrapping up our time together? Absolutely.
Tutallin.com is a good place. You can find me on Twitter, Tutallin with the letter 2, followed by Tallin. You can see me on all the social media, Instagram. I'm on Musical.ly, which is another fun little one that I started testing out, which is an interesting new little app that they got out there. Shout out to Musical.ly. Cool. And, but I appreciate you having me on the show. Those that are listening, shout out to you. My girl Sade, she's crushing it.
Thank you so much. I want to have you introduce your brand new song, Do It. We have an amazing treat and surprise for you guys tonight. You get to hear his brand new song for the first time on Sade Champagne Show. And so I'm going to have you introduce that.
Well, I am fired up and ready to bring you my new track, Do It, featuring my man Draft. And I hope you have a wonderful time tonight. Do it on the dance floor. Do it in the gym. Just don't do it.
Awesome. Thanks, Too Tall, and what a joy to have you tonight. Keep listening to the Sade Champagne Show on GrindHard Radio.
I'm Kevin Miller, and I believe every person deserves to feel great in their body and their life. I'm creating a community of people committed to empowering each other to achieve our dreams. Before I found my purpose, I had lost all hope of ever permanently getting back to a healthy weight. I'd tried every plan. I was stressed and overwhelmed about life and the future. Then I was introduced to a clinically proven, all-natural cleansing and nutrition system by my daughter. It's convenient, satisfying, and affordable. I released over 100 pounds and absolutely know I will reach my goal weight. I'm excited about life again, can play with my grandkids, and do anything I desire without any limitations. If any of this interests you, please call me at 805-218-7146, 805-218-7146. Have a great day.
Hey, this is Rick with the Living with Fearless Joy segment. You're listening to the Sade Champagne Radio Show on GrindHard Radio.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Sade Champagne Show on GrindHard Radio. Thank you for downloading, subscribing, and sharing my radio show every single week. Next week, our special guests include R&B, pop, and soul star Victor Corrali from Season 9 of The Voice, motivational speaker and published author of Empowering Dreamers to Become Achievers, Ramsey J. Jr., and popular model Adina Musta. We also have a brand new Sharing Your Story with Aya Kunle segment, Living with Fearless Joy with Rick and Melissa segment, What's Going On with Christina Renee segment, and Wellness Made Simple with Veronica segment. Thanks to GrindHard Radio for the opportunity to create my own radio show. Thanks to Travis Miller for creating and producing my theme song, and to Scott Swish for mixing the song. Thanks to my special guests, Francois Du Toit, Too Tallin, and Rachel SHUR from United Cancer Advocacy Action Network. Our final song of the night is Tri-C with My Crew. Thanks for listening to the Sade Champagne Show, and see you next Wednesday from 6 to 8 p.m. Pacific Time right here on GrindHard Radio.
Where dreamers dream, where dreams come true. There's no limit to what we can do. Turning no's to yes, leaving doubt behind, releasing the stress. We were born to shine.